Hey everyone, I'm Aaron from 2K and I'm joined by the epic Bill from Hangar 13. How are you, Bill?
I'm doing very well.
Amazing, cool. So we're at E3. What do you think of the feedback so far?
It's been kind of overwhelming actually. People love the booth. They love the that we kind of created like this mini slice of Bourbon Street. Fortune tellers, like I got my fortune told. And then obviously, the big thing is showing people an extended demo of the game, a slice of the open world, and also part of the mission where you go after Uncle Lou, who's Sal Marcano's brother. And from what I've heard, everyone who's seen it has just been, glowing in their praise.
Amazing. So now, for those that don't know, you're actually quite an integral part of the Mafia 3 journey, right? So do you want to tell everyone a bit about what you get up to at Hangar 13?
Sure. So I'm the lead writer. So essentially I kind of oversee all the narrative elements in the game, and that runs the gamut from the cinematics to systemic combat barks, and also we do a lot of work with the UI. And there's myself, and then there's two other writers, Ed Fowler and Charles Webb. And we just kind of mix things up, write mission scripts, cinematic scripts, all those things.
Amazing. So, Mafia 3 is it's quite unique. It's its own story at the same time, but it also absorbs, some of the narrative from Mafia 2 as well. I mean, how is that on the research side of things to make sure you strike a fine balance for new and old players?
Well, I think one of the most important things that we kind of attach ourselves to is just understanding what Mafia is as a franchise. So it's taking what we call a gifted anti-hero and then placing them in a very specific slice of American history. So obviously Mafia 2 is Vito Scaletta, and he's in post-war America, and in this case it's Lincoln Clay, and he's in 1968, which is a very turbulent time. There was assassinations of Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy. There were riots. There's the Vietnam War, the civil rights things going on. It's a totally new story with Lincoln and everything, but we still maintaining what people liked about the franchise, which is capturing that very specific time.
So one of the biggest things about Mafia 3 as well is actually the city of New Bordeaux itself. It's quite magnificent, it's very varied, and its inhabitants are also very different as well. And three of those are the underbosses of Lincoln Clay. So what were they like to design as characters, and how rich are their backstories?
We actually spent a lot of time on their backstories. So the three underbosses are Cassandra, who heads up the Haitian gang, Thomas Burke, who heads up the Irish mob, and Vito Scaletta, the protagonist from Mafia 2. And one of the things we really strove for in creating them is ensuring that they, as characters, that they had their own motivations for the things that they want, and also that they had a very clear reason for why they would join Lincoln in his crusade against Sal Marcano. So, like we like to say, one of Lincoln's gifts is that he's able to bring very disparate people together and unify them toward a common goal, even if those people don't like each other, and they really don't like each other. We showed a bit of a sit down, and in Vito's, bad mouthing Burke. So at the end of the day, they're all kind of, they're all criminals and they're all greedy. But like I said, Lincoln's been able to unite them.
We saw during the IGN gameplay demo, there was a very interesting sit down where Burke isn't too happy at the end of it. And can you tell us a bit about how those relationships can turn sour?
Yeah. So as you play through the game, you can assign out one of the 9 districts to one of the underbosses. And one of the things we're really trying to do is, have these really deep, rich characters in terms of the underbosses. So you're like, hey, you know what? I really like Burke. I think he's a cool character, or I really like Vito. And then you kind of introduce a conflict in that, well, you may like Vito, but Burke offers you a service like getting the police off your tail. So it's this balancing act of like, well, I like Vito, but I really want this thing that Burke gives me. And depending on how the player basically assigns those districts, it can turn one of the underbosses. You can turn them against you. So in the case that you're talking about, Cassandra and Vito had received all the districts at that point, and Burke was like, "I'm done."
What a sad, miserable fool I am for ever believing in you. But there will be no more of my foolishness.
And then basically at that point, they kind of revolt against Lincoln, and he has to deal with it.
Did you have a Eureka moment where you knew that this was a story that you were going to tell, and it was kind of, where it became complete and you knew this is what you was going to pursue?
I do. In fact, it's written on my whiteboard at work, and we show it in the trailer, and it's when Georgie turns to Lincoln and he says, "You shouldn't have said no." So on my whiteboard it says, "You shouldn't have said no." And that was the moment where everything kind of crystallized in terms of their relationship. Lincoln always thought Georgie was his friend. And then it just contains a lot of weight.
Can you talk us through the process of how, the narrative side and gets fed into what the folks do with the gameplay?
We had a pretty extensive offsite, and it was about, it felt like a year, but it was it was about 2.5 weeks. And it was myself and Matthias, who's the design director, Hayden and Andy, and then, various leads. And basically we just broke down the entire game. So we came up with the game structure of, hey, you go into downtown and there's going to be rackets there and you're going to take down the rackets. And then, everything in the open world ties into your revenge quest against Marcano. And then how we would feed off of that in terms of like the set piece missions.
What do you hope people take from Mafia 3 as a complete experience narratively, from gameplay point of view, and just from a tonal point of view?
We spent a lot of work capturing the era of 1968. And, there's a lot of emphasis placed on, obviously, who Lincoln is as a character, the civil rights era and stuff like that. But it even goes down to, the signs in the game, the art. We have radio commercials, we have quite a few radio commercials, and they're historically accurate. So they're modeled after, radio commercials back then were so cheesy and corny. So to our ears, they sound like kind of funny, but they're era appropriate. So like we spent a lot of time kind of fine tuning all those elements across the game, even the weapons. Like, hey, are the weapons accurate to the time? So I just hope that they really take away, like, it's a good experience for them, and like the previous Mafia games, it really gives them a taste of what it may have been like to play as a character, in this case Lincoln Clay, in that specific city in that specific year.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We hope you look forward to Mafia 3 coming October 7th.